Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Living the Line. I'm Carson Grubaugh, and joining me again is my lovely partner, Tori. Today, we're going to be talking about some books that I already recorded a review for, and then Tori was editing it. And what did you say?
I said a lot of things. I was pretty excited. It was just so cute. I was like, I have to read these books. I had flipped through them already when he first got them because they were so colorful. And I was like, oh, these are really cute. But then while I was editing the video, I was like, this just sounds like such a sweet story. And I was like, I texted him and I was like, while he was working, I was like, I have to read these books. And he was like, oh yeah, go get them. So we decided to do a video together.
So I decided it would be worth re-recording the video because this will be fun. And I agree, these are amazing books.
The cutest books of all time.
The cutest books of all time. So this is Nightlights and Hicotea, and this is just a sequel to this book. It's the Nightlight story by Lorena Alvarez. These are older books from Nobrow back when they were doing the nice hardcover with the little fabric sides and everything, and then just beautiful print quality, which given Lorena Alvarez's...
even this, just this beautiful, rich color and this like adorable little pattern, and this is just, I don't even care about things like this normally, but like the paper is nice. I think I've been watching too many of your videos. I was like, wow, look at the line quality and the color and the paper texture. It's like semi-matte and it really makes the colors pop, and I was like,
I've trained you, now you get it.
I don't know who I am, but yeah, reading these, I was just obsessed. They're so beautiful.
Yeah, Nobrow is like a company that, like, I think other than what Sean does, like, these are the other company I look to for like the book as a beautiful object with like ridiculously good production and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, they always have really nice paper that the artwork sets on.
And this was just so sweet. Just all of this, it made me think of Jack. Of course, my son Jack. The way she calls the little girl Sandy Cricket.
Because you call him Monkey.
I always call him Monkey, and then just the way, like, she's laying awake at night in bed, and instead of falling asleep, she's, like, daydreaming and telling him these stories. Like, he does the same thing. I'll hear him in there, like, 3 hours later making sound effects, you know, for, like, his stories that he's telling himself. And I'm like, go to bed, it's midnight, you know, and...
But, like, you're also having a hard time getting mad because...
Because it's just so sweet, right? He's in there making, like, explosion sound effects and, like, telling himself stories,
And I like that the way that she draws it is, this is in her imagination, but she's imagining the nightlights, which are like each this kind of idea, and then she'll grab it, and then you get these just explosions of color and imagination, which I think are the things that really sold me on these books at first, and then just these beautiful, like the way the colors used throughout and all of that kind of stuff is really, really fun. And then the layouts are really great, like all throughout. The cartooning's amazing. And so I just really, really like enjoyed the artwork. But I also thought that these books, and we'll talk about more, had like really good messages for kids. They're like, and they're not trying to get involved in any current debate or anything, you know, they're just like good life lessons about, and I don't have my stickers in here, so we'll have to reconstruct some of what I was talking about. No, it's fine. This was this other character that she runs into, Morphy, who originally looks like she's going to be a friend. So I think that's just important to point that character out.
And it was so cute. Like, she's at recess at school, and she's like over here by herself drawing with her headphones on. And I'm like, I remember being that kid, you know, like.
Yeah, and I like just like all these different characters. Like, this could be a story, you know, as these continue, like we could get to know all of these other kids. But I like that the artist's not leaning into that too much out the gate. It's like there's very much these nuns and all these other characters that seem important and alive, but there's just not room for them in the story yet. So I do think that the Nightlights universe can kind of just play out over a long time.
Yeah. Oh, and then so she's getting in trouble at school because she's then looking out the window during the lecture, daydreaming, and the nun tells her, you know, you won't go far in life looking out the window. And I've been
looking out the window a lot lately.
I've gotten that same exact lecture in school, like, because I would just daydream and like look out, literally like stop looking out the windows and daydreaming. Like, so it's just funny.
Well, and I never like daydream like that, but it always happened on paper for me, and it was the same thing, like quit drawing, pay attention, da da da.
Yeah, and I would get marked down for doodling.
Yeah.
On every assignment, any note, like there were always doodles and on the margins and stuff, and I would actually like get in trouble for it. So. Well,
I can tell you that I've turned out fine. I have good job. It took longer than normal, but
okay, we're still working on it. But you know,
I've now made it as an adult supposedly. But this also just gives you like she's not taking any shortcuts. Like when you do a city scene like this, you have like the karate up there, like each little window's occupied and designed and full of people doing things.
Yeah, it just feels like very alive, all her little worlds, both the fantasy and the real. Like there's just a sense of like real people doing real things.
And the artist
kid like running with they haven't put their jacket on all the way, they're just running with it.
Or holding their binders above their head. Yeah, like everything's it's just like love everywhere.
Yeah.
So then basically they're pretty short books, so you get into like the conflict and resolution pretty quick, which is fine. It's a kid's book. I mean, you can't draw it out for you can't draw it out for 800 pages. I
mean, I would love to read 800 pages of this, but
yeah, but like in 48 page chunks. Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. I think there is an 800 page or more world in here with all these different characters, because each character is so realized. Like this is how that kid reacts, this is how that kid reacts, like this kid doesn't care, this kid does, I think she's a powerful enough author and artist to keep it going. But I like that she's got these terse little like kind of morality tales. So I'm curious, what did you think the kind of task to overcome was with this?
I wanted to ask you about that too.
Well, you know my answer. You listened to my video, right?
I forgot.
Okay.
Brain fog.
Yeah,
so I completely forgot. So for me, I thought it was kind of like the insecurity of needing like external validation.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I always tell you that, like, you seem to have this kind of, like, self-confidence or, like, self-assurity that either what you do will be good, or if it's not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, like, I don't really care whatever. If people like it or not.
Yeah, and so...
I want people to like what I do. And, like, when I get a good review or something, I'm very happy, but...
No, I'm not saying I don't appreciate good feedback.
It just doesn't matter.
It just doesn't like make or break.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
It's not what I'm doing.
And it wouldn't stop you from doing it. And I think that's, to me, that's what I thought Morphy was, because she's saying here, like, I admire you so much, and once you realize that you need me to tell you how brilliant you are, like nothing will keep us apart. So it's like her own internal self-belief and like self-motivation grappling with insecurity and like external validation.
Yeah, and the Morphy is also like trying to get her to do, like, can you do this for me?
Yeah.
How did I make that? Like she's trying to kind of control what she's making. So yeah, I take it as like she's a representation of that desire for the external validation, but also to some extent like the temptation of the external validation. That when you get that praise and you start giving people what they want instead of being true to your own artistic vision, that there's a real danger in that. Not that like people who make a career doing illustration work for someone else or whatever are lesser, but I definitely feel like this is a artist who's like, I want to do my thing, you know? And like that was something I had to come to terms with, is like, I don't do very well being told what to do. Like I needed what Sandy needs, which is just that, to do it for me.
Yeah.
And so I think she's struggling against that too. Like that external validation can come in the form of people giving you jobs, people giving you money and that kind of stuff. But then there is the demand where they'll be like, oh, well, I want you to make this, and then you make this like ugly, you've got all of this beautiful things that are living in your head. And then like when you do it for the wrong reason or for someone else's desires, when they're asking you to do something for them,
twist it.
Yeah,
or,
twist
corrupts
it. Draw for me, Sandy, and I'll make the lights reappear. Like, if you do it for me, your power will come back. Why? I've never needed you before. But you will,
And she's, also, if you look at Sandy, like, she's getting to that age, right? She's, like, teetering on, like, preteen, kind of like where Duck is right now, where they're really starting to grapple with that social acceptance and needing to fit in. And, like, at a kid's age, in that age, and she's, like, by herself a lot, so she's lonely. So, of course, she wants to do things that people like, and wants validation, and wants people to like her, but it's at the risk of corrupting who she is and the things that she enjoys.
And this is the point where it's usually make or break for kids who are artists as kids. Like pretty much all people enjoy drawing, but when they hit the social age of like good or not good, all of these external pressures can kind of like people just leave it.
Yeah, because we talk about like the reckless, joyous abandon of like the toddler, right? That we love watching the toddler with the crayon just going to town. They don't care if it's good or bad. It just is making, and like it's
and like when you look at her drawings, they're cute. They're not the best drawings in the world. They're not Lorena Alvarez yet.
Yeah, but they're like the seeds of it, right?
They're the seeds of how you become that. Yeah, for sure. So I really enjoy that's the struggle in this book. And that's what I was saying, like this is just such a universal message, which I think is like the best thing we can be communicating to the kids, is kind of these universal messages of resilience and things like that. And to me, this is a book about resilience, and this Morphy gives her a lot of praise and offers her a lot of encouragement and kind of opportunities to betray herself.
And alleviates her loneliness temporarily, right? Like she has someone to play with.
Yeah, she's got a new friend.
Great. Yeah, like, and look how, so like right here where her mom stops her and goes, "I'm so happy you made a new friend, San." And so, like, you can tell that her mom also worries about how lonely her daughter is, who just sits in her room by herself drawing, right? Like, so, like, Morphy is this temptation, a major temptation, because, like, her mom's happy she's made a friend, she feels less lonely. Like,
she's getting positive feedback.
She's getting all this praise and positive feedback. Like, if she just gives into it, then, like, of course that would be tempting. But then you see that there's this, like, dark side to it, right? Like, super scary.
Yeah.
Because it devours her original
like
ideas.
Here's the idea that she made on the paper. I can already feel all the things you will draw for me.
Yeah.
And just snatches her beautiful little idea. I also really like these pages.
I was going to point this out. How she shows movement.
Yeah, these remind me of one of my favorite books of all time, Promethea. And I mean, there's plenty of comics where you have one picture and the character moves over it. But the designs of these pages and stuff, for people who know Promethea, this really kind of flows, and her designs are as beautiful and kind of compelling and fantastical as J.H. Williams stuff. And I've just always liked, because that makes me feel, I always like those like Family Circus Sunday cartoons where it had the little footsteps. Like, I never cared about Family Circus unless it had one of those, and then there's something about kind of that up view, watching the characters explore a place, that make me feel like I'm exploring more. Because I think normally what will happen is I'll just read and get the information and keep going.
And just like scan.
And I'm not very likely to check out the details, but the characters are going to put me in. So
she's really like inviting you to explore with them. It's cool. Yeah. I really liked it.
Then you just put that she's lonely.
Oh, yeah. So I was talking about how, she is isolated, and Morphy again is trying to tempt her and saying, you'll make us happy and we will love you forever.
And it's like not just me, but now in us.
Yeah, and so, you know, it's that temptation. Well, if you just make us happy, if you just do what we want, then you don't have to be lonely. And it's like, is that worth it?
Yeah, and she has to overcome that.
Yeah.
I agree with your note there. I'm glad you noticed that.
Yeah, I just thought, well, and then the movement here. Again, it's kind of that same thing they were talking about, but the way she draws the circle and then jumps into it, and then from there it guides you to the next page where she's swimming through this beautiful underwater. I just love that. It's so smart.
Yeah, and the way that this is, it looks like a single page, but then really like this is a continuation and it becomes a 2-page spread.
Yeah.
But it kind of also reads as like 1 and 2. But yeah, this like jumping down in, the visuals throughout are just really, really compelling, really well designed, and really great storytelling.
I just want our whole house to look like
like this.
I want the whole world to look like her book. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very appealing. And then yeah, there's some stuff here where like now she's kind of got her power back, right?
Yeah, and I just marked this too because like this is 100% what I would have done, trying to take notes about the universe and atoms, like, and I just love watching it happen, right? You're like seeing it unfold.
Like she started with this,
yeah, and then it just like explodes, and then she just jumps back into her world.
And this is because she stood up for herself. Like, no, I'm going to value my creativity and my individuality and all of that. And like, I'm not going to give in to these social pressures. I'm going to persist.
Be yourself, kids.
And now this is like within the story, you know, we've gone from these type of drawings to now that she's broken through, she's a better artist all of a sudden. She's more sophisticated. She's developing her own style. And you'll see that this is now like the sketch version of what Lorena Alvarez does. So I think there is a bit of like autobiography in here. Obviously, it's about an artist, by an artist. Yeah. And so I think she's talking about like, this is one of those things where this is, okay, like, yeah, write about what you know. And a lot of people say that, and then they just immediately do autobiography. It's like, veil it just a little bit. And like this is so much more approachable, but you can still put like, who knows, this may actually be a drawing that Lorena Alvarez did, or representative of something she did that was like the turning point, the click of like what she's doing now, and that she had to go through some struggle about this, staying true to yourself. But when you stay true to yourself and you chase it, you get this unique, beautiful vision. Like I mean,
just beautiful. Beautiful is not a strong enough word. I'm crazy about her art. And like I told you, if I was an artist, this is exactly what I would want to do. This is so pretty.
Well, you are an artist. You have made your own piece over there that we can put on camera. She said no.
Anyways, my point being, this is, for me, like, just so good. I could just look at this forever.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm sure, like, you see color things that I don't even see.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
I just love it. And even just like this last message here, where she's talking about
atoms.
Everything surrounds us is made out of atoms. The stars, our bodies, the entire universe. They combine in millions of ways to create all the things we see and touch, and the things we haven't seen yet. Yeah. And I just think that that's like, again, a really good universal message about kind of the I don't know, because, you know, I've been talking about this a lot, just the different kind of filters you can always be putting on reality, how many things you're missing out on. If you stunt your creativity, you're limiting yourself to other people's points of views. And like, there's all of that kind of messaging that you want to get to kids that I feel like more people do in too clumsy of a way. Yeah. Like they tell you, you need to care about what other people think, and like they don't do it right. Yeah, and then very sadly, since I got this book used, if you have a used bookstore, make sure your stickers peel off. I hate when people send and this was a library, so I had to like get all that off the site.
Oh, you got rid of the library stickers?
Yeah, I hate my library sticker. I know you love them, but Yeah, don't put stickers that are going to tear a beautifully produced book like this on there. So anyways, that's the Nightlights. And then Hicotea is a sequel to this Nightlights story. And I'm hoping, since this looks like it was made in 2019, I think is what it said, I'm hoping that we're coming up on, this was 2015, 2019, so I hope we're coming up on a third one.
Maybe we'll get another one.
But, yeah, I would hope so.
And I think just put, I like how it's the same, it's obviously the same style, but how you can see already that the color palette is shifting, and like it's a repetition of that patterning even here, even though it's a little different. I just think that's...
So there's like unity.
Yeah, it makes them like a nice cohesive thing, but they're still different and interesting.
Yeah, and she's still like evolving as an artist, I think. You know, there's a really well-developed artist already, but I think shows continued improvement. Like the kind of packed full of details in some of these pages is over the top. So here we're back with Sandy in school. And like I said, now you're starting to get more an introduction to some of the other kids and the nuns. And this is one of the nuns. So these are all well kind of developed characters within Lorena Alvarez's mind, I think. And that's why it's like, oh yeah, I do want to see volume 3. I do want to see volume 4. I do want to see 800 pages of this. Because it feels like she's created a world in which she can do pretty much anything she would want as an artist. I could be wrong, but I don't see this as someone who needs to go do something else. I feel like this vision is pretty what she'll be doing. And
to skip back, when they're on school, they're seeing some older kids doing like a dissection, and then they chuck the dissected frog into the trash, and then like before they leave for the field trip, you can see her, she's sitting here just looking at the frog, and she's just sad, and everybody else is just like, ew, it's gross, like blah, don't worry about it, and she's like contemplating it, and
like
then
death, really.
Yeah, you know, and like the way that this living thing was treated so casually, and then they're here and they're like doing a science project, and her partner is like, well, I'll put this snail in the jar. And she's like, no, don't put it in the jar. Like, you don't know how to feed it. What if it gets sick? And she's like, who cares? It's a snail. Yeah. And so they get in a fight, and then she runs off.
And they've been told, like, to stay on this side of the river.
Yeah.
This is another one of those things I like about those, like, where she moves through an otherwise stable. And I'm assuming that some of the other kids move around, too. Like this, this
her
girl.
Partner always moves with her.
Yeah, but this little black girl with the bun shows up in different places. This girl with like the big hair.
Yeah, they're all moving through like the different areas and.
Yeah, so even though really this is like oh look, there's a little fairy there.
Oh, it's like a Barbie.
A little Barbie doll.
Yeah, with crazy hair. Like a Cynthia doll from the Rugrats.
So even though there is all of that. Well, even though they're a pretty quick read, like, I mean, I think you were like, okay, I'm going to go read them real quick while you get ready. You can invest a lot in, you can get more, the more time you spend, the more it pays back. Like, I'm even noticing now, the storytelling, like, I kind of ignored that first, but she set up the turtle shell, which is important here. But they've been told not to go to the other side of the river, and she gets so mad that she does. And then that's where, like, I hadn't even noticed that, because there's the turtle shell there, but obviously it, you know, comes up and you see the turtle shell there. You didn't need it on the. I was worried about this. Your note. The
turtle haunts me.
Yeah, your note. So you're gonna tell that story. I thought about that when I read this.
Yeah, I got really sad. Like that panel alone brought me such great sorrow and terror in that moment. I accidentally killed a turtle when I was like probably like 9 or 10. Because we lived on a farm, and I found a turtle in the strawberry patch, and I wanted to adopt him. And so I was like dragging him all day, like feeding him strawberries and hanging out with him. And that, well, he's a turtle, so surely he wants to go for a swim.
Come on.
And so I put him in this like tank of water, and it turns out that he was a land turtle. And I just watched him sink in water and drown. As soon as I saw the turtle fall in the water, my heart sank. But then
So did the turtle that 9-year-old you dropped in her.
Wow. Well, I'm done. Anyways.
That's That's like the opening. But yeah, it's like it's interesting to see her care for animals, and then her frustration with the immediately like, oh no, oh no, oh no, like I'm so sorry. And then she looks into the turtle and it, like gets sucked down into this like TARDIS thing here where it's inside of the turtle shell. This amazing world that this Hicotea character has.
Did you notice that?
Bjork?
It's the Bjork album cover.
I didn't catch that until you pointed it out.
Penny.
It is. Yeah, I was looking at this and like thinking, this is where I was saying she really up in her game in terms of like how much time each one of these is like a full painting that she did in illustration and then put it in a frame. And I was trying to find like things like this is the that Manet, the people eating lunch with the nude woman, now that I'm looking at it. So I was trying to find these things and see if
I picked out what I could. Not on this page. Well, there's the
there's the Venus. I didn't see this.
It
was more on the other page that I was finding more things. But I thought, man, she really did each one of these, or is she putting them in from other places? But
that
now that you
looks like an African.
Also looks like a uterus. But now that you point out the Bjork one, and now that I see this, the Manet, the lunch with the nude lady, so she's doing each one of
familiar, but
these.
I can't put my finger on it. But I feel like I've seen this before.
Well, and there's definitely like this is like a Wassily Kandinsky.
So she's like simulating a lot of styles, but like
Frida Kahlo,
making them with the little animals. Yeah, Frida Kahlo.
But she's taken the time to do each one of them like separately, which is really, really impressive. And then here he talks about what this is, and he says, these are things I've been collecting for a long time. Each of them represents a question that someone asked and their journey to find an answer that might show the world in a different light. And I really like that because that's always how I've thought about art, is that I'm not an artist so much as a philosopher, and I use the art to ask and answer questions, and each piece is like a journey through my questions. It's like a record of how I'm asking and answering questions. This is definitely the one where I was like, okay, she's got 2 Hieronymus Bosch pieces.
That's Yggdrasil.
Yeah, that I'm familiar with. This is also a Hieronymus Bosch.
This is the representation of from Hindu mythology. The world is supposed to be supported on the back of 4 elephants who stand on the back of a giant turtle called Katshapa, who is the reincarnation of the god Vishnu. And then this is like the scarab, which is about rebirth and creation.
Okay. And this is like Kermit the Frog in outer space. This looks like a Delaunay painting, maybe.
And obviously there's the Fibonacci spiral.
Yeah, so you get a sense of like all of her influences. Like this one's more mystical. Yeah, like little tree of life diagrams, the solar system,
the body.
medical body. This is like more systems pages, but something here. But there's a lot of artist reference too.
That's an atom.
Yeah, and then I like that it extends to sculptural stuff. You kind of get like this Henry Moore sculpture. You get the Da Vinci flying machine. So the amount of time that she's put into this one illustration is pretty astonishing.
And like
to me.
research, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, and then this idea of like this guy collecting all these questions and journeys that are like different views of the universe. And then, like, take my home, for example, something that you thought was small is in fact almost infinite. Or if you look at a marble, perhaps there's a whole universe inside. You just have to ask the questions to find out, don't you know? And so that's like a continuation of the message in the first book, which is like, develop your own unique worldview and be curious and be open and don't get shut down, because there are kind of infinite amount of ways to see the world. And like, so rarely does someone develop a new way to see the world, and that's what an artist or a inventor like Da Vinci is doing, is kind of coming up with a new lens to put on to interpret the world. And that's like the value of all of this stuff here. And so she's continuing that argument for like the worth of art and the worth of imagination and the worth of creativity, and like trying to encourage that in kids. Be creative, be critical thinkers. Like I just
like
think
ask questions.
Yeah, it's all so nice.
And so now she's gotten into this painting
within
Hicotea's shell.
And again, look at just like every one of these pieces here is probably its own illustration that she then shrunk down and collaged in Photoshop into here.
Yeah. It's awesome. I mean, just so little
axolotl balloon character.
Little fungal.
And then here's the frog comes back, and it's kind of a guide for her, the frog.
Yeah.
So I like how she'll do that too, is like you can just kind of surreal go along with it, but when you do go back and look, like I don't think I noticed that this was the frog that she'd been cutting up earlier, but you go back and you're like, oh yeah, okay. So these are like great for kids because you could just read through them, and there's that like kind of big mythological kind of moral, but then for an adult you can kind of go back and really find all of like how much care was taken and how much pre-planning there is and how smart it all is.
Yeah, and I love here the frog is explaining about this world inside of Hicotea's painting, and he's saying that, you know, it used to be really lush and beautiful and it's been disappearing. And he said, you know, at first it was really small, but then we nurtured it and we found that the more we explored it, the bigger it became. And it's like the idea of your inner world and your own imagination, like the more that you nurture those things and explore them, obviously our own inner imaginative world is limitless, right? Like we can create as many endless things and worlds as we want, you know.
But also puts that in relationship to the external world, that the external world is also infinitely kind of unfoldable. Like if you can take more control over your internal lenses, you can see more of the external world. So as you grow inside of the turtle shell gets bigger, your kind of perception of the outside world will get better. And again, like this awesome Promethea-like kind of path. And then even the fact that it kind of is asking you to turn the page here, you know, there's like some mechanics like that going on that doesn't really pay off on the flip necessarily, but there's some interesting things like that.
That's very cool.
And then just this composition of this like big bird here.
Oh, so cool.
The abstract coming in.
And then it's, you know, and then they're talking about, well, Hicotea saw something that was so scary she didn't want to learn about it. And I think that, to me, is like the same kind of discussion about your own inner fears or those parts of yourself that you might not want to necessarily learn about, but...
Or even talking about like bias and bigotry. Like this is one of the things that I appreciate about these, as I said, they don't get too political. Like, but they're doing what they're talking about instead of talking about it. Like, this is a book that could have been all about, like, the story could have been explicitly about, oh, we need more diversity and more representation. But they're obviously just putting diversity and representation into it, and then are talking about bias and bigotry, but without like hammering it on the head where you feel like you're getting a lecture about that. It's speaking to kids at this general level that I think is much healthier about like, look, like this thing that you're scared of is just one more opportunity to learn something if you treat it right, and instead of closing down and becoming bigoted and biased and not looking at things. Yeah,
and if you run away and don't deal with it, then like that thing withers, right? Instead of you acknowledging it and nurturing it along with everything else, and it's like an opportunity to grow your world even further.
Learn from someone else, learn something different. And so I think that's why, like I keep saying, I feel like these have these really healthy lessons that don't get bogged down in any of the current, like just kind of poorly constructed discussions about these things in our society where we're all on the same goals, but the way we talk about it's a barrier. I feel like this is a kind of a barrierless book intentionally. Both of them really smart.
And it's also exploring like empathy as well, right? Because again, here she is arguing with this big bird.
The scary thing,
like the whatever it is. And, you know, she's saying, well, why do you even care? Like, why did you come here? This is Hicotea's problem. I'm just destroying her world. It's not your problem. And she's like, no, that's not right.
Yeah, well,
we have to stand up for it.
And she goes into like the deepest, darkest existential despair here too, is that in the end the darkness will engulf you and your world. You know, like soon you'll realize how insignificant you are and that you'll never be able to understand the universe. And like that's a very real thing. I think I talked about that in my original video. That was very impactful to me because I've always viewed it as like there's two approaches to reaching enlightenment. Mm-hmm. Is that like everything and nothing to me are equivalent concepts. Like the opposite of nothing is something, not everything. Mm-hmm. To me, everything and nothing are just like the same. And so I've always thought or always felt that you could get to the same point by either forgetting everything or by learning everything. Okay. And we're so much closer to not knowing anything that like the Eastern Zen approach is to let go and forget. And not that you don't know things, but it's just kind of moving you back to the nothing side that we're already closer to. Whereas the Western approach, which is my personality for sure, is want to learn and explore and blah, blah, blah as much as possible. And so here's kind of like the negative argument being made for like, oh, well, you know, like just head towards the nothing. And I do think there's a lot of validity in that approach too. And that's probably, we're closer to that, so it's smarter.
I don't think it's even saying like head towards the nothing. I think it's more of an argument about, sorry, I'm interrupting you.
No, it's okay.
It's more an argument about how you, like, it's not, what am I trying to say? It's not trying to know everything or nothing. It's about hope versus hopelessness.
Well, it's about how you navigate that endeavor. Yeah, like, so it's very easy. It's very easy when you have my personality and your tendency is that kind of more Western scientific urge to know everything. Yeah. There's a lot of excitement in there's an infinite amount to learn, and that's what you want to try and preserve, right? But it's very easy to be like, but I'm never going to get there, so why bother trying? And there's two answers to that too. You can have the more Zen approach, which is just kind of letting go, and I'll know what I'll know, and that doesn't necessarily mean you quit searching. But then there's the nihilist approach, which is, well, I can't ever know all of it, so why even fucking bother? I'll know nothing. And like that's what's saying is like, you're so small, you're so important, you'll never be able to understand this all. And so this thing is tempting her to just give up,
to just be,
to just quit, to just give up, to be a nihilist,
complacent, to not be curious,
like be suicidal. Who cares about the universe? I mean, it really.
Well, like, to just like to kill that imaginative, curious side of her. Like he's trying to kill her spark, right? Like.
Yeah, like if you can't know everything, then why bother?
Then don't know anything.
Rather than like encouraging like the mix of those two viewpoints, which is the kind of acceptance of the Zen viewpoint, but with the. And I think the Zen has that in it. They're not trying to get you to stop chasing. It's just quit caring about it. But then also keep that curiosity alive.
And you know, but it's also interesting too, because like I put a note here saying that sometimes I like to feel small. And so it's also about your relationship with like being able to accept your smallness in the universe. Like,
and find it exciting.
And find it awe-inspiring and like something to be, excited and like inspired by versus destroyed by. Like I love to get in the ocean or to hike to the top of a mountain to see how tiny I am, because it just, to me, it's like a reality check. Or something.
Yeah, I mean, astronomy class was like my favorite thing ever. I'd walk out every night and look up and be like, oh my God. Like when you start realizing the numbers of just stars in our galaxy, and then you realize that there's trillions of galaxies with billions of stars apiece. Like, you just look up at that and go, God, I'm so insignificant. But
I think you have to find joy in being small. I think it's important to be small.
And that's what she advocates for, right? And that's, she says, I may be small, but that just means that there's so much in the world to do and see. Like, I'm never going to get bored.
Yeah.
And that was something that just came up for me in like all the tech and philosophy videos, is the guy talking about computational irreducibility. And he said what that means is that there's always something new to discover. There's always a new lens we can put on the world. The scientific project of like having a complete theory of the universe will never happen. Like, you'll never reach that point, because there's always one more interpretive filter to put on things. And so I think like both of these books, she first struggles with her own internal motivation in relationship, or she struggles with her own motivation in the first book with like external praise, like feeling worthy herself in that sense. And then this is like a different relationship to the outside world. It doesn't have anything to do with other people, but it has to do with your reaction to the reality around you. And you know that Sandy comes through both of them, like making the points that need to be made is great. And she says, maybe I won't be able to create a place as beautiful as the one that you stole from Hicotea and Din, but I know I can start again from nothing, just like they did. And so that's like a very encouraging, and again, you know, like what better messages could you be teaching to your kids than those kind of things?
Yeah, and so now she's like defeated the little monster thing, and she's like reunited with Hicotea, and she says, they took my notebook, I couldn't bring it to you. And Hicotea says, well, you know, that was my mistake. I was wrong. That was your journey. Like, that was your question. Those were your answers. That was your journey. I shouldn't have asked you to do that for me. I have to go back into the painting and face the scary thing, face the fear, overcome it.
Like myself.
Yeah. I shouldn't have asked you to do that for me. And so,
well, and again, it's reinforcing that these are all journeys, right?
Yeah.
That each piece is a journey, and that you've got to go through them yourself. But also, like, the value, again, of art is that was someone's journey that they went through and found answers. And, like, you do got to respect that they went through it. And so it's not going to be as powerful for you, but also like the communicative effect of someone who has gone through something like that and left some evidence, like the fact that Lorena Alvarez left this book that we can get something out of and that can teach a kid a lesson, like that's super valuable. So I think in both of these also, she's just constantly making the argument for creativity and art. And
totally. And like,
love it.
To that point, that's kind of like what I wrote there, is that Hicotea thought that the purpose of all of this was the end goal of having all the information, right? But the actual purpose was the journey. And so I made that, there's like a quote that says the way is the obstacle. You know, so we're always trying to we're always tempted again to like go towards the easier way or whatever, but the reality is it's like going through hard things, going on your own journey, asking your own questions, and digging up your own answers is the value, and that's the value in art.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm having in the face of the AI, like, is making me rethink being an educator, is how to teach what this book teaches, because I still don't know yet.
Yeah.
Like that, and this is perfect that this artist or the Hicotea has collected all the end pieces. This is like, you could endlessly collect pieces that an AI have pumped out, but there was no human journey in it necessarily. I mean, I obviously don't want to get into that too much. I think there's some other value there, but it is emphasizing the journey. And I really appreciate that, because it is something that I'm trying to have to learn. And that's the answer to the nihilistic worldview too, is also seem very powerful to me, you know, that if you're thinking about the end state that we're trying to like solve for the universe, and then you realize you're never going to get there, that's very hard. But if you look at it as she does and say, well, it's cool, like we're just curious creatures and there's always one more thing to learn, like then you're not thinking about the end state, you're not thinking about the finished painting, you're thinking about like, oh cool, there's always one more thing to learn, I'll never get bored. So,
and I loved this string of images. It just felt so like domestic and believable, and then it again, you know, transitions into this fantasy moment. And I just remember I was the same way. Like, people used to say I was a fish because I just loved to be underwater. I loved the way that the world would like bend, and seem to be like infinite almost. I don't know, it just felt, it took me back to being a kid for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's again like that thing that I've been talking about lately about the lens shift.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you shift underwater, like the science of it is like the water, the light's being bent by the water.
Yeah, I understand, like the fractal, whatever, like
the refractive property of light and all of that, but it literally changes the data that's coming in and gives you a new view on the world. And I'm the same way. I love being in the water. I loved when I was, you know, in my early 20s, I loved like climbing on roofs. And I think they are up here.
Yeah, they're up on a roof.
They're up on a roof. I loved like in the middle of the night climbing on the roof because it was like walking into a new world. Yeah. There was like a world above our world that I could exist in, and that things felt different from there. So it is just like all of these. This is why this is an artist who's saying like everything they want to say, and they're saying a lot, and they're saying a lot of really important, powerful stuff, and that's all couched in like a 54 page, if you count like this big spread here at the end. You know, all of that is said like, it's
so simple.
Yeah, it's always interesting, like this and the Victor Huguenot Spectator's book are the two that I've read and looked at recently, where they probably took me 15 minutes to read the book, 20 minutes, whatever, and then I could talk about it for an hour and a half. Yeah. You know, like that's really powerful artwork, is that all of that labor's put in, you can consume it.
I just want to look at it. And then on top of that, it's such a beautiful, meaningful, dense story. Like, perfect. If you can get these, just get them. I'm not even like a comic book person. Just, you need to have them. Get them.
Yeah. And you, like I said, these are kids' books. Yeah. So you can give them to your kid. There will be nothing in there like but positive lessons for your kid, but also like obviously we're both sitting here being like, yeah, these books are awesome. So. Yeah,
like I watched a video of him doing it and was like, I must read this, and loved it. We'll probably read them at least one more time.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's, you know, I think this is really a peak Nobrow book, but this is also, as a publisher, one of the reasons I like Nobrow is because they're never someone who will like publish something because it has a good story but weak art, or it has like great art, but they do balance a little bit more on great art, but like sometimes the stories are a little but usually it's like, we're not going to touch this unless it's solid all the way through. Yeah, and I think she's obviously, Lorena Alvarez is one of their exceptional artists, you know.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, if she wants to like teach me how to do this. No, I mean, it's amazing.
So I think we're both very hopeful that we're on that 4-year where we're getting close to another one of these, or at least whatever Lorena Alvarez is doing.
DMs and be like, yo girl, what about Nightlights 3?
And I know Nobrow has been facing like their books have been getting smaller and not hardcover in response. It seems to like just supply chain issues with paper and stuff. But I think these ones, especially being kids' books, hopefully they'll continue in this format too, because they're just beautiful books start to finish, from like how they're put together to the art to the stories. So.
Yeah, everything about it. Perfection.
4 thumbs up. Well, anyways, obviously we really think that these books are worth buying, and couldn't get a higher recommendation. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for following along. Solid Yellow, Path of the Shades by Clarence Doss is a really cool ongoing project that Living the Line will be producing. Clarence is a PhD student from Fiji who's studying the myths of Fiji for his doctoral thesis. And part of that study project is that he's producing these comics. They're kind of like Hellboy, where there's these little short stories that capture all of these different mythologies. But then he's using that to wrap the project into his doctoral thesis and then provide educational material where people can come to these comics. You know, they don't have to read his PhD thesis. They can come to the comics and get a more consumable version of the mythology of Fiji.